start by not only Ugandans, but the world at large. And here is where we are today. Setting the ball rolling. I'll start with you, Ndugu Akol. We talk about an election, and it just seems very obvious. It seems every day. But let's tell the people, first of all, what is an election?
Well, I think an election, we are not going to get into the nitty-gritties of the dictionary definition, but generally this is a process where people come to choose their leadership, to choose those actually who are going to be in charge of their day-to-day affairs. So, and we have very many types of elections. And here in Uganda, we find that after 5 years, we've successfully had elections since 1996. Because at least after 5 years, we've maintained that pattern, that we choose leaders at various levels, especially local governments, the central government. In central government, we look at the Parliament and then the President. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Ndugu Mututa, Uganda has had a history of elections from the time when actually before our independence in 1962, we had elections in 61, we've had elections. Now many of these elections are those that we just read in our books, in our annals. None of us actually participated in those elections. And I think the last election that we had in this country was in 1980. And that election was also not an election like these elections that we're having today. This kind of election started in 1996, where Ugandans could actually come out to vote and say, it is you whom we want to be our next president. Just looking at the history of elections, there are so many people who possibly are excited that they're going to vote for the first time. Some of us are lucky. I personally first participated in an election in 2001. And subsequently, I've been actually voting. Let's talk about the history of elections itself in this country, Uganda. What needs to be, and what needs to be learned from our history?
I think the first election for Uganda was the election when representatives were elected to the Legislative Council, the LEGICO, the famous LEGICO, under the British administration. After that order in Council of 1902. Exactly. Now, since then, we have had a number of elections coming up and going on. We have had times when people are universally elected. We have had cases where people are picked. You remember even the LEGICO, when they were having the first elections, I think there was the major two political parties, the DP and the UPC. But that time, I think that's when Uganda boycotted, because for them they had preferred to have their delegates elected directly from the Luchiko. But the system that was in place was that people were supposed to be elected directly from the constituencies. So that one was boycotted. But then I think the first election was won by DP. And then the subsequent one, Uganda was allowed the opposition to have their representatives, in which they elected about 27 people to join parliament. And most of them were under Wanu Kabaka, the YK, the KY. KY Kabaka Yeka. So, and the election is now from then, of course, given that history, again, the turmoil, but we have been having this election is until today. So, when you are given that, I think the elections, if in Uganda, when people sometimes talk of lack of civic education, but I think these are the minor details, the finer details, I can say. But Ugandans, even if you told them to have an election today, they still can go ahead and vote. But the finer details of where to tick, who is number what, those are the issues that sometimes talk of about civic education. But again, I think the issue of civic education is not tied to the Electoral Commission like people say. It is the political parties, the players who should educate their people that if you are going to vote for my party, if you are going to vote for me, this is how you are going to vote. That education is entirely the biggest responsibility of the political parties, not the Electoral Commission, as we keep demanding. But the Electoral Commission also has a role to play to facilitate that process. So when you look at the elections today, it means we have, if the issue of elections, we have graduated, we have moved on a long time, at least some. Elections and democracy. Because then you have to look at the internal mechanisms of the political parties that usher in the election. Because you are going to have a general election. But what you are having in a general election is what you have been given by the political parties. Up to today, we have had people crossing from one political party to another, or some people giving up, say, I'm not going to participate. We have had, I think the last case was until yesterday, where we are hearing people have now dropped out of the election. So all of these bring in play the issue of maturity in the electoral process. At what time, at what point do you do what? And who is the right candidate for you as a political party or a political system to offer, so that in future or tomorrow when they are going to be elected, you know you have a credible candidate. But you are going to see, to the extent that some polling stations, we may not be having agents of some candidates.
Okay.
In the four candidates who are going to elect tomorrow.
Okay.
You will realize that some polling stations, there are no agents.
Do not have agents
yes.
at all.
Yeah. So that shows that much as we have been having these elections, but the issue of the finer details in terms of democratic development, we need to move, I think, a step further than where we are.
We talk about a continent who is a continent that is celebrating about 60 years averagely for independence from the time that we got into sovereignty and self-governance. And when you look at our 60-year, when you look at our 60-year independence on the continent, you'll notice that before election set in, we were riddled by civil wars, and Africa was characterized majorly by wars. And the trade of guns, actually, when you look into the statistics, you will notice that the market for guns is more in Africa than it is elsewhere. Do you think elections come in to actually sort or help to solve what the wars and the guns used to do previously, that instead of resorting to war and to the use of guns, then the best thing to actually manage things and issues and all the things is by settling everything through an election? Is that where we are after 60 years?
Yeah, I think that's where we are, because in the past, actually, what you maybe have not mentioned, we had coups. Yes, because wars were not so many, but actually we saw the army controlling the politics then after independence. In most countries, you find that the army would determine who takes what, when, and where. Yeah, but we see that in most countries, they have really tried to remove power from the army now to the wananchi, so that the wananchi, through an election, can actually decide. I'll give an example. We have countries, actually I think there are very few countries in Africa that did not test coups or did not test the army disorganizing the civilian leadership. But even those countries where the army was notorious, especially here in Uganda, we have Nigeria, we have Ghana, you see they've all tried to get back. Getting back, say, look here, I think election is the right way. But the problem is still the quality of election. Yes, I think that is where the challenge is. The quality of election is still wanting in most parts of
Talking about
Africa.
the quality of elections now, are elections intended to just sanitize the processes, or they actually mean anything to go by?
No, I think our elections, to some extent, they give us what the people want, to some extent. And when you say to sanitize, you see there are always two issues in an election. That of course you have the leaders and the led. Those are the two, and at every other time the leaders will always want to manipulate the led. So it depends on who does it better and then goes through. So in Africa, actually, it's very few countries that you find that the leaders based on issues to say, look here, this is what I stand for. But by and large, most of the politicians on the continent manipulate you. What works for me, how do I win an election? It doesn't. And actually, most of them, it is the end justifies the means.
Ndugu Mtuta, are these elections here for anything, or we just use them to sanitize administrations and certain processes?
Now, before even we go to the elections, and of course that's why for me personally I have a problem. Whoever told us that you can only have peace and harmony of society through elections, maybe there was something missing. We can look at the African establishment. We had a kind of our own elections because we have smaller parliaments. We had clans. I think it was
the chiefdoms and the kingdoms that we had.
Exactly.
That, Uganda is actually one of the African countries that was characterized and dominated by those.
So when you look at those kingdoms and chiefdoms and clans and tribes, you find there was a way of sorting out issues. Of course, before the Mzungu comes in, we had the conflicts, the clan and tribal raids and all those. But that was not like in the absence of elections. It means that these societies were already established, that they had a command, that they had the leaders. But now what happens is when we bring these societies and tribes together, then they needed something beyond the micro setting of those particular communities. Now that means that then the issue of elections comes in. We have to elect for someone to represent you at this level, elect someone to represent you at this level. But like you are saying, when you are talking about the quality of elections, you're also looking at the quality of the participants. Because where you have...
What sets precedent? What comes before the other? Is it the elections or the participants themselves?
It is the participants. Because
so the quality of the elections is actually determined by the participants in these elections.
Exactly. If you are going to have poor participants in the election, then trust me, you are going to have a questionable election. In other words, these participants are not going to obey or abide by the rules. These participants are not going to follow the procedure, of course, the rules. And in the absence of that, then at the delivery line, at the end of the production line, you are going to have a bad leadership. And then a bad leadership comes from the bad elections, and the bad elections is because you had bad participants. But to look at that, I think also, and then who is giving us these participants? You are looking at the political parties for this particular case. That the political parties are the ones who are sitting down and say, this one, we have sent this one to go at this level, and this one is going to sit at this. But now, when you look back, and it's the same problem now, most of the electoral commissions of Africa are facing, that the internal democracies of the political system, of the political parties, sometimes are responsible for bringing out the bad leadership. Because if the political system is not going to deliver its best to the electoral commission to process for the elections generally, then you are going to have a problem. Because we have had cases where people come up to say, but I think we didn't have a good time to prepare, or you didn't have, recently in Uganda, for example, you have had people say, I'm supposed, the flag, they show the flag, that the flag was robbed from me, I'm supposed to have the flag. So these discrepancies within the internal democracies of political parties also deliver sometimes bad leadership, and that bad leadership is what is reflected on the bad electoral processes, and of course then the bad leaders in future after.
What needs to be done, because elections are events that are actually very emotional to the people who are participating in those particular elections. Now there is that euphoria that is caused during elections. Emotions actually go very high, they flare and do all the things too. And just take the Ugandan example, just look at the Ugandan example. Now when you look at Uganda's civil service, you notice that the civil service employs less than 500,000 Ugandans in the civil service of Uganda, the entire civil service of Uganda. Now, but then when it comes to elections, for example, did you know that when Justice Byabakama, now the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, advertised all these elective positions, these are about 1.59 million positions. Now, these are all elective positions. Incredibly, 97% of these are actually special interest group elections, amazingly. And these are about 1.4 million slots that are there. Now, if the civil service employs just about 500,000 people, and you have elections here that employ 1.53 times the civil service. Now, when people look at the elections, of course, they know they are getting a job for the next 5 years to actually see whether they can defend that job for another 5 years. That the emotions that come with them. Just looking at that and the excitement, don't you think that this is actually what causes us more problems than before? Because we are Bades, we are comrades, we are colleagues. Today, when there is no election, but when it comes to a time when we are actually all tussling out for the same constituency in Makindi, then we become big enemies. What could be the cause of this?
Well, I think in real life, competition, in anything competitive, will always bring out emotions, both those involved in the competition and their supporters. Of course, like look at whether it is athletics, whether it is football, as long as it is a competition, you expect that really people's emotions will always come out. But again, the other issue is that, in other words, like a hen does not use her two legs to look for food simultaneously. It is one at a time. So I have a feeling that each country will always have its own process of bettering the quality of their elections, their democracy, and this may not happen at the same time because of what they are going through. Even in the US, I think the experience of Trump is now taking them back on the drawing board so that they can say, okay, in the event we have such kind of president, how do we deal with the situation? So every election, every leadership comes with challenges, and those challenges will always be a learning point to better the process, to better the whole exercise. Just recently, we've seen in Ghana, where even much as the ruling party had majority, okay, we can't say majority because they had a difference of 2 legislators ahead of the opposition. But the opposition went ahead to win the slot of the speaker. So now, with concessions. With concessions, of course. Now, so eyes are now on Ghana to see how the system can run where the speaker is from the opposition and you have the president outside.
So the first deputy is from the ruling party and an independent as the second deputy.
So these are some of the issues now that are all learning points. That you say if it is happening here, we can also learn from it. We can also learn from countries like, of course, you see in Tanzania, whereas in Kenya, they brought Sante through a handshake, but in Tanzania, in Zanzibar, there was no handshake, but the opposition leader there is the first vice president. And of course, that was said only, I think, in the interest of the country, to bring the country together. This is what we have to do. So these are all processes that every election comes with its own challenges, and it is those challenges that give us something to learn and also determine our next course of action.
I also see a scenario here of, you wanted to chip in before I come in?
I was saying something that sometimes, like, again, I go back to the political organizations and the political parties, because if you are going to give to the public your best, first of all, you know there's one position. And not all of you are going to win that position. You go in this election knowing you are either going to win or someone is going to win. At the end of it, there will be a winner. Maybe you, maybe not you. Now, and maturity in politics demand that sometimes you have to appreciate the winner, that maybe he was a better person than you. And that is what is lacking in most of our democracies, that a person comes in to win and he must win. And of course, like he said, in those days we used to refer to countries like the US. Of course, until recently, now we have known that these problems are not isolated or made for Africa. They can happen anywhere. Now, when you have people who are seasoned, people who are mature, people who are disciplined, they will definitely take a lose as a lose or a win as a win. Tomorrow, after we have the elections, we are going to have people who are going to be losers in the presidential, to be losers in the parliamentary, or winners in any of those categories. But it is only a sign of good conduct and good heart that, for example, in the US, there is that call that the loser makes to the winner as to concede the election. I think for them, they are waiting for it until tomorrow. It has never happened, and I'm sure it will never happen. So congratulate someone. If I won and you called me, say, look, James, you have beaten me on this one, but next time I'm also going to beat you. It is likely that we are going to be consulting and working together. So whenever I have a problem, I'll come to you and say, look, how do we handle this problem? But here is sometimes a situation where when one loses, the next thing you hear are people fighting because they are supposed to have won. Either we are discrediting the electoral process, or we are just confirming that the person who presented for this particular leadership was actually not fit to be a leader. That is why you have resorted to underhand methods. So in the event of those, then it means that we shall have to, because we are not learning anything if that's happening. But where we have learning cases, you say, this person was the best candidate and he has won, and I need to congratulate him. Next time, even when there's a problem, this person will definitely, we shall be partners, because you will consult, hey, this man who I beat in the election, or who beat me in the election, I think there's something we can share here. Because at the end of it, the bigger picture is what we miss. Once we have a bigger picture, then these skirmishes, then these conflicts, then these abuses, even the language we use, because you know, after this election you are going to need me, I'm going to need you. So there is a particular language that you are going to use. But where you find people abusing each other, even how naked they look, then you know there's a problem. These people are not likely to work together ever again. That shows that other than the elections, the maturity and the decency of the participants is also key.
Well, that's very important. Now it brings me to another issue here that I want you gentlemen to discuss for me. Firstly, to maybe just let our viewers out there know that we have teams paraded across the country who will actually come to us differently. We have teams in Karamoja, people who are actually on their way traveling to Karamoja to see the preparedness of the people just right there. We have people spread across within the region here, and of course the other places. When they come through to us, we will be able to link them to you to know what is actually happening elsewhere as we prepare for the election that is coming on tomorrow. Remember, I told you that the election hub is here at UBC TV, where we'll be together, of course, with Star TV, our Luganda channel, and 6 other studios where we'll be bringing live everything as it continues happening. And of course, we have our brigades stationed at the Tally Center in Chambogo. Now, remember, it started in Chambogo on the 2nd and 3rd of November, and it ends in Chambogo on the 16th of January. So there will be no other Tally Center anywhere. The only Tally Center is at Chambogo, and of course, that was the official place. Anybody who actually announces anything shall have actually gone into it will be plagiarism, because all this exercise is organized by Electoral Commission. It's the Electoral Commission that actually told you 11 people are contesting. Anything that happens, they give them the symbols, they give them all the things and stuff like that. So everything, the ballot papers and everything is the discretion of the Electoral Commission. So anything that you announce, still you shall have cheated the Electoral Commission. Let's let the Electoral Commission do their bit, because it is their responsibility. We are looking at a copycat situation, a copy and paste democracy of sorts. Now, so many of us rush into making comparisons with the United States, and we look at a country that has built its democracy for quite a long time, and they have institutions. Now, currently, you can see the situation that Trump is in. But you see, one thing is Trump can be checked by their institutions that have been built over the years. Jay Cohen wrote a book called The Accidental Presidents of the United States. The 8 presidents actually who changed America, but these were accidental presidents. Just America has ever got in its history. 8 presidents by accident. But these accidental presidents have actually, again, done something. But you see, they got these accidental presidents because they didn't have the systems and stuff like that. In Africa, for example, one of our role models is Ghana. But we talk about a country that got its independence much earlier than ourselves. But yet again, we are looking at a sanitized Ghana from just 1992 to date. And the entire life of Ghana has actually been able to organize 8 good elections when you look into their history. What is the situation like? Can we redefine democracy to ourselves and say this is what is going to be the African template of democracy to go by, because we want Uganda to perform exactly like the United States?
No, I just have a feeling that every country has to define what works for them. What works for America actually may not work for Uganda. Though, of course, there are particular things that we may agree upon. What works for Ghana may actually not work for Uganda. What works for Tanzania may not work for Kenya. So these are realities we need to understand. But the bottom line is to at least have an election that many are going to believe that yes, this represents what actually the people wanted. I'll give an example. Of course, maybe I may not name the country where really when they announced the winner. The results were announced in Nairobi. So you can imagine the elections in one country, and when the Electoral Commission is announcing results, they're in Nairobi announcing results. So I wouldn't want that kind of situation, that the Electoral Commission should be at liberty to announce results within that very particular country, and where people say, yes, this is a reflection of what we saw, of what the general feeling actually was. Now, the other thing also I want us to agree is that we should also organize elections not forgetting where we're coming from, not forgetting our own cultures, not forgetting our own values as a country. Those are some of the things that we really need to look at. And lastly, of course, we should also know that democracy is built within, not without. That you'll want to impose a foreign kind of arrangement. No, the system must be built by the wananchi, one step at a time, until we get it right. But every other time we get something to impose it on the people, then it takes ages. Yeah.
Okay, Mututa, on that particular issue of the copycat democracies.
We have talked about Ghana, and we can take it again because it was a country which was the first country in Africa to get independence. Now, when you look at Ghana, there were 2 parallels. Before they got to the elective democracy, Ghana, like Uganda, had a number of chiefdoms. And with the biggest one, I think, was Ashanti.
The Ashanti.
And then there were other smaller chiefdoms that had been assimilated. Yes. Now, when you look at how they were doing their things, they were actually more organized, that they had the levels of leadership, from the smaller to the bigger to the king. Now, when these elites went to Europe and studied political education and many other studies, of course, they came back and they admired what was happening in Europe, in Britain, for example. So when they came back, they started with political parties. I think they formed a political party, and then they started having elections. The first political party was led by Nkrumah himself. Now, what happened is that along the way, it didn't take long. The elites who had come from Europe began dividing themselves. They thought Nkrumah was too slow for independence, and they wanted something bigger. For them, they had different beliefs. So when you look at that...
Ndugu Mututa, first hold it here, because we have a caller online, and this is Dennis Sigoa. Dennis Sigoa, can you hear me? Well, asante sana. A very good evening. Just let me know where you are. Are you in Soroti or you're already in Karamoja?
I'm in Kumi, but now let's Kampala a bit late, not
Oh, you just a few kilometers to Soroti. That's okay.
We can Soroti in the next 20 minutes or so.
Paint us a picture of Kumi and Teso region predominantly.
Generally, I would say that if you are to come this side, if you're on the road, actually not think there's an election tomorrow, I'll say that. Life looks to be so normal. I can see everyone is going on with their own business. So I think it's a very, unlike Kampala, it looks like we don't have a lot of hype, a lot of deployment this side. So I'm so sure tomorrow morning we'll give you more updates and what it was far in terms of the election there. But nothing so much. The road has been so good. Of course, less traffic. Yeah.
Just before you go to Kumi, you went through towns like Iganga, Jinja, you went through Mbale, and those are the big cities. What's the situation like in those districts where you've passed before getting to Kumi?
So generally, all the districts are almost similar, right from Jinja down to Iganga. Of course, these are the side of Kumi, and I would say Kumi, Bukedea. The rest is normal. There's nothing much. A few people on the road. Of course, campaigns ended yesterday, so there's nothing. I wouldn't tell you that I saw any crowd around. But unfortunately, on the way, we found there was an accident near the junction of Terenye. Actually, near Iganga. There was a very gruesome accident, and we've already sent some videos there for Vincent, our guy in terms of traffic, to at least update the public of what there was a vehicle that had a red collision. The Subaru that was heading to Iganga, and a taxi that was heading from Mbale, right?
Okay.
Yeah, from Mbale to Kampala, yeah.
Okay, Sigo, just before I let you go, it's our trade as journalists to normally interact with the Wananchi, especially in restaurants, in places like that, when we take breaks to eat or drink something. What conversations or what rumors did you hear from them when you interacted with a few? Najua, that you are in one of those restaurants anywhere. Well, what are these conversations that you're hearing from the Wananchi?
I like your question. I haven't gone to a restaurant, but I've got at least 2% whom I put in my car. And we've been having a conversation. These are gentlemen who are voters from Bukete region. And they're all excited. They're traveling, both of them are traveling from Kampala to the village to vote. And they're excited about tomorrow. And they're saying they're not worried at all. And they're not worried that there's a lot of speculation that probably might have some chaos and whatever. But the other side is they are not expecting that. And people are really ready, they're eager to vote tomorrow and peacefully.
Asante sana Sigo, tunakushukuru.
Karibu sana, asante.
Thank you very much. We'll get back to you sometime later. Safari njema mpaka sema ambao unaenda tonight.
I'll be in Moroto at 7:30, so you can call me at that time.
Tutaongea na wewe sasa. Asante sana.
Karibu, asante.
Thank you very much. Now that's Densi Goa talking to us from Teso region. He's actually a few kilometers away from Soroti. That's where he is. And he says, well, the rumors that is tapped actually from the Wananchi there is they're not worried that there's anything bad that is going to happen. It's just their civic duty that they're going to do and get there. And I think that's very encouraging. If he had given us a rumor of they are hearing war drums, beating here and there, then that is what would be worrying. But we're happy that that's exactly what's happening. You are concluding your issues.
So I was saying that our democracy from independence is then dominated by elitist tendencies, and those who started in maybe sometimes had some good intentions. Some of them didn't have good intentions, but then it was a clash of cultures. Having our own examples and our own systems against what is being brought in from people who had gone to school, and most of the independence struggleists in Africa are students who are coming from Europe, who are coming from US, and this is where we have a problem. But maybe if we had a transition from our traditional kingdoms, traditional tribes, into something that will bring us together. Now that more communities and more tribes were coming together to form governments, maybe it would have been different. But we are getting an exotic bull, and we have to move to the rest, because those who are giving us these templates are also expecting us to move with them at the same pace. It's not possible. We are not going to move with a man who has been this democracy for the last 200 years, and for you who is starting today. Maybe this is some of the problems that we have. We could not define our own systems, but we are getting systems, and we are being led by people who have gone to school and coming to tell us. Africa was not with that. Africa was following the ideas and the knowledge that was passed on from behind. But now we are thinking that what we have gotten in school is more important than what we are getting from from behind. Now this clash is why
the fireplaces.
Yes.
The clash of cultures, Duguako.
No, the clash of cultures, of course, that has dominated African politics, where you find that after independence, actually, as he said, the elites that were supposed to chart the way forward of their various countries now went into tribal and religious cocoons, which ended up stagnating the progress of the continent. And if you look at the coups in most cases that happened on the African continent, these coups were actually along tribal lines. That somebody will see who has the majority in the army, which tribe dominates the army, and perhaps they would use that to disorganize the civilian arrangement or the civilian administration. So I can also say that we must learn to live in unity and diversity. That of course Africa having so many cultures, Africa being a country that of course has very exciting cultural practices. We can use that as a strength,
yes.
Then come together and see how we chart a way forward. You see, what is very interesting here in Uganda, somebody that Kawaka Mwanga of Buganda, Kawalega of Bunyoro, and the chiefs of Lango and Acholi used to discuss without a translator. Yes, you remember when Kawalega and Mwanga ran to Lango where they were arrested. They used to talk without a translator. So implying that in Africa, the sense of cultural diversity was appreciated. That even when I'm in Uganda, I must learn Alu, I must learn Rutoro, I must learn Runyankore. That was there. That even when Kawalega was in Kenya, he used to talk to those nurses without a translator, implying that he knew some Swahili. So that is what we should appreciate, that as Africans, our unity is in the diversity of our culture and of our people.
We've had a very long history of elections, and the most recent elections that Ugandans remember are these elections where they've been able to participate individually, especially the elections of 1996, the general elections where we saw Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Paul Kawanga Semogere, who was actually here yesterday, and Mayanja Chibirige. And you know, when you look into our history, you can see that we had elections here previously where there were political parties. Like, he took us through that particular history. But do you think we are actually learning from these past experiences over and over again? Because we, castigate our elections if we do not turn out a victor. But yet again, you find a Jagenda Semakula who has been voted for as a member of parliament, but because he's lost on the presidential candidate, he discredits the process, but he doesn't say the same process actually made him win, or he excelled through the same processes. And this is what we tend to look at, to a moment where people think that maybe these are just rituals that we keep doing every 5 years. Some people even think if it's possible to actually suspend elections. Is this a conversation that any one of us would actually get into? Do they help us? Do they check us? Do they really push us to accountability?
No, the elections we have, definitely, we've had, especially since 1980, they've always given us something to learn, and they have always improved. The shortcomings of 1980, of course, led a group of people to go to the bush who were not satisfied. So when we had elections in 1996, actually you find that the Akabwai Electoral Commission tried as much as possible to minimize the mistakes of the 1980 election.
The Kosia Chikira's election commission.
Yes. So they made sure that they really minimize that. Now, in 2001, still, we also now see a record number. We had more presidential
candidates turning up.
So much so that even we had two people from the same, ideally the same village, contesting for president. That is Chapa Karuhanga and Francis Wenji, who come from the same village. Who come from the, actually, they really came out. So that shows that now more people were taking interest in the whole process. Then 2006, we said now, I think we are now mature enough, we can go under the multi-party dispensation, because that was the movement system. The parties registered and they started competing. They started competing. So I think at every election, at every stage, we've always had an improvement. Now, in this particular election, the improvements now I'm now seeing is that now we have young people, actually, more young people going to vote this time around, because most of them clocked 19, 20, 21, implying that they didn't vote in the other past election. Yeah, it also this particular election, we are also seeing a record number of 11 presidential candidates. We are seeing four of them young people. Yes, young people, and you find that the 1995 constitution, if it had not been amended, they would have been barred from really contesting. So you find that today we have people like Katumba, we have people like William Ayambala, they are also going to be on the ballot. But also, we have also people like President Yoweri Museveni, because if the 1995 constitution had not been amended, then the elders. And now you see Uganda in 1995, when they were framing the constitution, you realize that our life expectancy was around about 40, 45.
I think about 40,
yes,
46.
But now where you have a life expectancy in 60, and which is also promising to grow, that people can now live 70 up to 80, then it becomes unwise to lock out the old people who actually may have aspirations, who may have what it takes to lead the country.
Well, that's very important. Now, just hold it here, and I would now just love to take you to Entebbe to see how prepared Entebbe is for tomorrow's election, and we'll speak to our reporter there, Sura Kagugobe. He will talk to us in Luganda to rush us through, and we'll also, of course, run to, we'll also just get to Kasese, where Moses Mutabali is also to tell us what is happening from that side in Bukonjo or in Kasese. Okay, let's see. Here he is. That's very important. Please, you're going to for what the situation is like. Ndugu Sura Kagugobe, chiri chitierudeyo.
Action. Ngebule sawa mbale bubale okusula akalulu k'obukulembeze bw'eggwanga, ababaka ba palamenti n'ababaka abakiikirira abakyala ku disitulikiti ez'enjawulo okwetooloola eggwanga buli ddakiika eyitawo mu bitundu by'Entebbe ebyokwerinda byongera okunywezebwa, era nga bw'oyita mu kibuga ky'Entebbe n'ebitundu ebiriraanyewo abakuumaddembe kw'okuba amaaso. Nsobodde okwogerako ne RDC w'Entebbe Haji Nuru Njuki Mbabaali n'atutegeeza nti nga bo enteekateeka yawedde dda nga bagenda kukolagana n'ebitongole ebirala eby'enjawulo, gamba nga poliisi, amagye n'aba LDU okuyambako akakiiko k'ebyokulonda okukuuma akalulu kano wamu ne bannayuganda. Wabula ono alabudde bannayuganda bonna abeefunyiridde okwetaba mu kukola effujjo nti si baakukkirizibwa, era n'abakuutira nti buli muntu amala okulonda akalulu ke ajja kumusaba atambule adde ewaka ate alinde oluvannyuma lw'okulangirira akakiiko k'ebyokulonda baani abanaba bayiseemu. Naye ng'embeera bw'otunuulira ekibuga kyonna kyonna ekyali nzikakkamu, newankubadde nga bannayuganda bo batandise dde okusagambiza, bagamba lugaba wanaabugirako eddiba bakubukeereza nkokola bagende basuula akalulu kaabwe ate balonde oyo omukulembeze gwe banaaba beesiimidde. Ekyenjawulo ekirala ekiri Entebbe nti abamu ku beesimbyewo okukwatira ebibiina ebyenjawulo oba okuvuganya ku ntebe y'obwa pulezidenti mwe muli ne Pastor Fred Mwesige ng'ono naawangalira mu bitundu by'Entebbe era ng'asuubira okukeera ku makya okuba akalulu ke mu bitundu by'ebbanga Nakiwogo. Tujja kuba tulondoola embeera yonna nga bw'eneetambula olunaku olw'enkya n'okutuusaako buli kimu ekinaaba kifa mu bitundu by'Entebbe. Nze Sura Kagugube, wane Entebbe.
Well, whoever the Sura Kagugube, we thank you so much in Entebbe, and of course, it's also revealed to us that Fred Mwesige, the pastor, is going to cast his vote from Banga Nachiwogo. Now I know where Banga Nachiwogo is, and I've actually enjoyed fish in Banga every other time. So he's my neighbor, not far away from where I stay. Unfortunately, I actually don't vote in Entebbe. I vote from Salama in Munyonyo, so that's where I will be. But we have our reporter, Mutabali, Moses, who is right now in Kasese. Can you hear us, Moses?
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, thank you so much. How are you in Kasese, and what's the situation like? Tell us and give us a picture of what Kasese looks like today.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, Kasese is calm, and people of Kasese, they are ready for tomorrow to exercise their constitutional right of choosing the president and parliamentary representatives. We as journalists, we've been in a press conference with the security officers, we are with the RDC, who confirmed that they will do all along around the clock to ensure that elections are peaceful, there's no violence. Apart from today morning, there was information coming from Songora North, where Honorable Nzo come from, where one of the candidates on independent ticket, Jonan Bamwenda, was attacked by the gunmen, unknown. But on a good note, the RPC, that's Rwenzori East, as Simwe Samuel said, investigations are ongoing, and the culprits, when they are got, they will be brought to book. But otherwise, the election materials have been dispatched to sub-counties, and as you well know, Kasese district is a mountainous district, so very early morning, they will be reaching at the polling stations in time to ensure that voters cast their vote in time.
Mutabali, where personally do you vote from in Kasese? Where is your polling station?
Well, for me, I vote from Kasese municipality, that is Kisanga A. Yeah.
And what time do you hope to be at the polling station to do your voting before you actually get into this exercise, because this will occupy much of your time tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to vote at exactly 7:30. I won't miss that time. At 7:30, I will have cast my vote, and then immediately I rush to Bwera. I rush to those sub-counties which are in the mountains, Kitoru, we have Nyandero, we have Nyachiumbu, and I hope that by midday tomorrow, we shall be, I will be delivering stories from those areas.
Okay, that's very important. What assurance do you have that the Electoral Commission will actually have delivered the voting materials at your polling station by that time? Have you had an interaction with them? Are you sure that by 7 o'clock these will actually be ready at the various polling stations? Do you have that assurance from the returning officers in Kasese?
Yes, I've been with the Ismail at Jukire, the returning officer, this afternoon, and by the time I saw Rollies dispatching the election materials, boxes and other materials, and he assured us that by 6 in the morning, everything will be set.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Finally, from you, what are the people saying? I know you've interacted with the people, that's why you stay. And what do you hear from the people? How prepared are they? How ready are they? And how willing are they to actually wake up and go? And from your different interactions with them, what do you think or project the turnout will be at the different stations?
Well, my projection is people tomorrow are ready, first of all, to cast their votes. And much as Kasese district, you know it well, it do experience some rainfalls. Now, if we are so praying hard that the electoral process is not disturbed with the rains, but by 7, what I know, at various polling stations, people will have gathered to ensure that they cast their vote in time. Maybe something my brother have left behind, what the RDC informed the people of Kasese was that as soon as they cast their vote, if you cast your vote, you will be required to go back home, so that you to avoid the gathering. this is in line of controlling the spread of COVID-19.
Okay, thank you so much. The person that you said you talked to is actually an EC official. Is that so?
Yes, he's a returning officer. That is, yeah, that is Ismail.
Okay. I heard you mention that name. Thank you. I'm happy that you've spoken to the officials there, and I think that's very important. Thank you so much, Ndugu Muthabali Moses.
Yes.
We will keep in touch with you. We thank you so much. And just a message to you personally, privately and publicly, if you can, and whenever you can, I talk to the people of Kasese that let them go and vote and let peace win. We should vote peacefully and do not think of anything like violence. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, thank you so much for heeding to my advice, and we'll continue. Talking to you, that's our reporter, Moses Muthabali, based in Kasese, and that's where he is. We're counting just hours away from that. We told you the election hub is here, and UBC TV will rotate around to let you know what is happening across the country, and as everything continues to unfold. Gentlemen, from the three callers now, or the three reporters that we've had so far, we had Decency Goa in Teso, you just had Ndugu Kaguguve speak to us from Entebbe, and of course Muthabali here. What do you have to make of what they've said?
I think we can see the level of preparedness. I think the stakeholders are prepared. The EC has done its part. According to Kasese, the security agencies are also on ground doing their part. But like he put it, and I think this is something, a line that has been running all along, and I've been having this argument back and forward. Why, people are saying once you vote, then you have to stay and wait and keep the vote. Said no, that is not even necessary, because the exercise is for you to vote, and after you have voted, go away.
Okay.
And now people are saying, you are saying so because you want our votes to be stolen. All the four candidates, the president, the MPs, they have had their agents. And by the mere fact that one is appointed an agent to be on that polling station has a role to play.
Okay. Well, very importantly, hold it here, Ndugu Mututa. In an election, there are normally what we call the hotspots. When you go to the United States, they have Florida, they have all these, they have Georgia, they have Pennsylvania, they have, there are particular places where you think this comes out. Now, to them, is they look at them and say, okay, these are swing states, we want to know where it's coming from, these are strongholds of X, Y, or Z. In Africa, we also have this, when it comes to elections, there are hotspots. For example, where Ndugu Mutabali is actually in Kasese is one of those. When you go to Tanzania, for example, you have places like Zanzibar itself. Yes, exactly, which is very terrible there. When you come to Kenya, there are places in Kenya you can actually look at the Kenyan election and determine it. You can say that this is actually going to be a Jubilee election. Exactly. This is actually going to be a NASA election, a NASA vote rather. Then of course you get to places and say, okay, now let's come to Nairobi itself, where it's not very easy to determine who takes the
constituencies.
Of course, but the constituencies in there.
You always know that.
You can keep looking at it from that angle. So we'll talk about these hotspots, especially when we've just started, and we here until Saturday, even Sunday. But then again, let's take you to the figures. Let's look at the screen and of course also talk about the figures of who is going to elect or to vote tomorrow. Who are these people? Can we have an election where 100% people turn out? Of course, no. There are people who have died and are there. Just looking at what is just right there, we have 146 districts. Now, this is different from what we had in 2016, because in 2016, we actually only had 112 districts. Now, 146 means we have an extra about 30 plus districts that are coming on. And of course, these also speak a lot when it comes to our voting patterns. You will also notice and see that just right there, we have 353 constituencies. Of course, these are more than the constituencies that we had for those elections. The only political party that fielded, I think, 99.9% of these is the NRM, because one of the constituencies where they didn't field is the constituency in Maogola North, where Musherure and Sodo were contesting. They ran out of time, and the Electoral Commission that were not fielding anybody for that particular one. But of course, all the others will actually be able to let you know how many anybody has actually fielded for that particular position. Now, you also notice that we have the number of sub-counties in these are the sub-counties that we have, and these are key statistics for us. For example, there was an election that happened on Monday, and the sub-county election for the youth, and the NRM, I think, pulled 50% of these unopposed, about 1,100 of these as unopposed now of the 2,000. So this is an election that happened on Monday, and I think the results are actually out. We've just not gotten into where the results are, but that's also one of the things that is continuing to happen. We have the number of parishes across the country, which is 10,594 parishes. Our polling stations altogether are 34,000. Now, 34,000 polling stations are 684. Now, these are all the polling stations where voting is actually supposed to happen. And I want us to use these statistics also talk about what we expect, or rather how we think everything will play out. Because if you have 34,684 polling stations. Now, this times 2 means you need about 71,000 agents. If you're going to multiply this by 2, that you have 2 agents for every station, then that means you need about 70,000, about 75,000, about 71,000 agents. Now, that means Yoweri Kaguta Museveni needs 71,000, Sentam Chagulai needs 71,000, Katumba Oye actually needs 70,000 people to be able to ensure that that's what happens. Now, the voters this time are 18,103,603 voters. Now, practically, under the earth, you cannot have all these people vote. Because there are people in hospitals today because of COVID or because of other ailments. There are people who have gotten accidents today. There are people who have died since this time, because this was it was updated, I think, a year ago. And so 1 year later, you can't say you all still have 18 million intact, and that's why it is. But this number has actually continued to grow from what we had in the previous election of 2016. Let's speak about these numbers or figures, Wajameni, what these mean to us, because these are simply figures, and of course these are facts. You have nothing to do with them. You have 146 districts, you have these polling stations, rather you have these constituencies across the country, you have 2,190 sub-counties, you have 10,000 parishes across the country, and you have 34,000 polling stations. Let's speak to the figures.
Now, you may realize that, and of course this is something that we also need to understand. When you look at 18 million Ugandans eligible for voting, who are supposed to be voters, and if you take 2016, you realize we had, how many people voted? About 7 million.
Yes, 8 million, I think.
Yes, yeah, close to 8 million. Now, you realize that not even half of the population who are supposed to vote voted. Now, why is the problem? And then this time we have had an upside. We have had an increment in the number of voters. I think the registration went up when people were registering for the would-be voters this time. And then how many people are we likely? If we go by the trend, then it means we're expecting about 10 million people to come out and vote. Of course, you would wish that more people would come out and vote, more than 10 million. But if the figures and facts remain the way they are, then we are likely to have only about 10 million people voting. Now, where is the other population? Because we have, in Uganda, for example, elites are not known to be voting, and someone needs to find out why. And then we also have another population of people like the police sometimes are deployed in different areas where they are not able, and the army.
Not only police, even the journalists.
And the journalists are also, there is also that population that will not be able to vote, but also we have people who have died since the update of that register, that they will not be able to vote. So when you look at those figures, it also gives you an impression that if you are going to have all these people at the polling station, then it's going to be a very big task. You have the EC officials, you have the candidates with their agents, both presidential and parliamentary. Then you also have the other observers, because we're expecting other people to be there to observe. Now, when you look at that figure, at first it gives you one impression that Uganda, the number of voters, the interest in the election is growing. That we are going, it means also that we're having confidence into the electoral processes. But that also leads us to the next thing of that we are growing democratically. Because when you look at this, we're now talking to numbers. But these numbers can only be actualized and can be useful if we all come up and vote, because then that will help us to make use of these numbers. There are countries with all those numbers, but maybe the voting is a problem. Because it looks bad if a person in Uganda, president, wins an election with, for example, maybe only 5 million out of the 18 million. It means they have more population, a bigger population, a big percentage of people who have not been part of that process. And that, to a greater extent, undermines our process, but also the democratic development and democratic awareness of the population in Uganda.
Okay. Yes, Akol.
Well, I think from the numbers, there is a pattern that after every 5 years, we get more leadership positions. And that also moves with the growth in population. That every after 5 years, actually, our population keeps growing. But also that said, from the figures we have, actually, I think now this is where presidential candidates should come to terms with the reality, because you need about 71,000 agents across the country. But now
Call them 70,000.
call it 70,000. Now you have areas where you even do not have a single campaign agent, even where they don't know. So how are you going to raise the agents at a polling station? But then secondly, because now we are in a multi-party dispensation, and I think this is very, very critical here, because figures don't lie. You have over 80 constituencies, 80 constituencies in UA, where the opposition has no presence, where it is NRM versus an NRM-leaning independent, where you have NRM going unopposed, others pulling out of the elections. So surely in a constituency where you even fail to raise a candidate, how are you going to raise the agents at every polling station? So this is a reality to opposition parties, especially NUP, FDC and the rest, that at times they've tended to concentrate in a few areas, leaving out some other areas. And at the end of the day, those areas they ignored turned out to determine who takes what. So it is very important. Now, in countries where there has been a serious competition, where it is a two-horse race, you find that the leading parties deploy everywhere. They have candidates on every elective position. So where you in some position you fail to raise people to actually to contest on your flag or on your ticket, it means you'll have an uphill task guarding the votes that side. You'll have an uphill task knowing what is going on at that polling station.
But at the same time, sometimes we have had cases in this country where the opposition is blaming government for the open up space, Democrat this. But you realize that actually democracy is not built by a ruling government only, by a ruling party only. Democracy is an effort of all the participants who come exactly to make the process better. And by today, the opposition and those in power should have learned from the past that we need to work together to make this process smoother than it is. Now, we are going in an election where the movement already has a number of members of parliament declared. Now, in those areas, we're not going to have any elections.
No, we can have elections, of course, for presidential.
Oh, exactly. yeah, for presidential. And,
for presidential,
yeah,
yes,
and
MPs.
for presidential only. But now you realize that if the problem is that most of the political parties have an interest in the capital here and also in other towns, but in the rural areas they are not there. They don't have the district branches. They don't have the rural areas. One will argue that we have not been given the freedom to go out, and this is what I hear, to mobilize and open up branches. Fine. But do you need that freedom to be able to do that? No. There are many ways of doing that. To the extent that if you don't have agents in those, if you don't have supporters in those areas, then what do you get agents? You can't. In other words, you are going to have a few people in towns where you have polling stations, deploy a few people in Kampala, a few people in Wakiso, in Entebbe. But what happens in those areas, in the deep rural area, in these polling stations we have seen here, because the majority of these polling stations are actually in the countryside. They are not in the towns. So how do you get results from those areas? And how do you get votes from those areas where even your own presence doesn't exist? So, in the future, I would wish to see that the political parties have branches and have people across the country. So when it comes to competition, you are also talking of a tough competition. Until then, now we can be led by these emotions, by these groupings, but actually when you come to day after elections, you realize, and people talk of who have been cheated. You cannot be cheated where you don't even exist. Okay. But what I think now is to support each other as political actors to ensure that in a very particular constituency, you have leadership. If you cannot have your own, then you can ride on a leaning system that can help you deliver the results.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now, let's get to our other reporter, Ndugu Nasiru Wama, who is stationed in Mitiana. Good evening, Nasir, if you can hear me.
Good evening, Mr. Jagenda.
Are you well? Are you fine? You're in Mitiana, Busuju. I know that very well.
Yes, I'm in Mitiana. The situation is calm, so fine.
Okay, the situation is calm. Run us through what is actually happening and what we should expect from Mitiana, where you are stationed currently.
So far, I'm stationed in the municipality, which is one of the most contested constituencies in the district.
Yes.
I've tried to reach out to certain candidates today, and all of them are trying to organize their agents. We will be helping them in tomorrow's elections. Mitiana has 4 constituencies. Most the participants are almost 28 who are vying for those four positions, including that of the Woman Member of Parliament. Because it has 4 constituencies and the other one for Woman Member of Parliament, where we have Minister for Information Technology. Judith Navakova is the minister and the MP as for now. That position is also highly contested, where minister is running with the Joyce Vagara of National Unity Platform. There is also another one, the independent one, Nabalisa Brenda. That is one of the most contested position, which has the least candidates, because others have like 8 and 9 and what. Like this one, it has 3, which make it to be tight as far as contestation is concerned.
Okay, who is the other candidate, apart from the Honorable Minister Judith Navakova and Joyce Vagala of NUP? Who is the third person?
Nabalisa Brenda. Is
what does she represent?
Lisa is independent, has no party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, also always has the campaigns, he always say that he's been pushed by the people, has come to, because of the people are pushing, he had to come and represent. That is her slogan.
Okay, well, that's really very important. And how about the municipality? That's Honorable Zake, Nse, Gumire, and several others. How many in that position, and what is the situation like? What are these voices that you're hearing from the people in Mityana?
First of all, this is one of the highly contested position, which it has like 9 contestants. Rivers move around in Mityana. Seems Honorable Zake is also, as you know, he has the party. In most cases, it's not easy to defeat the party like NRM and NUP in Mityana are very strong. However, Zake, the nearest contestant, whom we're really running with, is David Kiza, Dr. David Kiza, Martin Semambo. He's an independent. But still, if it's about the 2 horses in the race, we are seeing Honorable Zake Butebi and Dr. Martin Semambo. Another one who is also trying to be in the third as far as contestation is concerned is Mr. Bugembe John Mary, NRM. And what is really surprising, or what is amazing in municipality, is Honorable Lucy Mbabazi of the DP. This one has been even has caused some kind of, I can say it is confusion, because when you look at his posters, he has NRM and DP and also NUP at the same time. This candidate has caused some kind of confusion in the society. Also, yesterday I had a chat with him. He also doesn't understand what he's doing. He also said, those who vote for me, even me, I have nothing to say, but he has like 3 colors at a go. He has DP, he has NRM, and he also has NUP. So, and others, of course, there are 9, but those ones at least they have some kind of special attention.
Okay, did you have some time to meet the minister, the Honorable Judith Navakova? Have you seen her anywhere? Have you talked to her? Has she spoken to you? And what could have been your interaction if you had an opportunity to speak to her?
At least today I might talk to her on phone, because he was busy, you know. People are so busy to look for agents and deploying them. I was unable to get her physically, but still on phone, we managed to talk.
Okay.
And she told me at least she's doing the best, the final touches as far as organization for tomorrow is concerned. Okay. She's really doing well. By the way, she's doing well. Means I still doing well. It's still on ground what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you're saying something before I ask you?
At least when you go to Busuju constituency, at least there we are seeing a tight race between
Vincent Nyanzi and Luchamuzi.
Yes. Vincent and David Karwanga Shams. The tight race is there, at least all of them. The incumbent might be having an upper hand, but also Vincent is also strong in that position. Okay.
Well, Nasil, thank you so much. We'll still get back to you possibly tomorrow. We pray that you keep yourself safe.
I can continue now. I might to talk to the returning office of the district.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They're dispatching the materials now. The vehicles are loading.
Okay.
At least by tomorrow 7 a.m. They want the process to begin as it was programmed. And then when I talked to the spokesperson of the Wama region, Madam Rachel Kawala, there is much still, I can call it maybe confusion concerning the curfew time it takes time to tally no votes.
Okay.
Madam Kawala is not so sure whether they will allow voters to proceed witnessing the tally because they don't join curfew time. However, the commission is saying the voter might be having the right to witness. Also, the police is saying they may not go beyond 30 time, so police may take action if the time goes beyond time against these voters. Yeah, especially those who are not pre-accredited to be part of the voting process.
Okay. Well, Nasil, thank you so much. Just privately and publicly, if you can, and I'm sure you may or will can, talk to people about peace. Let them go out in numbers, vote, and ensure to keep peace. Because the common good for all of us is this country called Uganda. Thank you, Nasil.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Nasil, in Mityana. And we'll now also find a way of talking to Yusuf Obo, who is in Iganga. And I think we just need to wrap this up to pave way for our Kiswahili bulletin. But gentlemen, here is where we are. Here is where we are. We're going to talk to Obo to just see what that means. Now, the FDC did not field any woman in Mityana. Isn't that surprising? DP did not, and all the others. What I forgot to ask Nasir here, I will ask him privately. I need the recording of that picture. That is NRM, FDC, NUP, and anything, because I'm intending to go to court over the same issue. So I need to gather some evidences for myself, and I'm intending to go to court after this exercise. I am one of those that will go to court, and I'll tell you what my suit will look like. But I need that as part of my evidences of a candidate who is NRM, FDC, NUP, and DP, and all these things, confusing us and confusing the voters in there. But doesn't it surprise that in a district, and Mityana is one of those big ones, the Honorable Navakoba has a lot of work to do because she has 17, there's 17 parishes, I think, that she needs to run around with. It's quite a big one, and doesn't it surprise you that the Democratic Party in Mityana, the FDC in Mityana, of course UPC in Mityana, can all not field a woman member of parliament?
And I think when it comes to an election like this, where you have the opposition on one side and the ruling party NRM on one side, I think that was the best thing that the opposition should have done. That they should have mapped out the country and say, look here, I think NUP, you stand a chance in this place, you stand a chance in the other. So that is the only place I think that what has happened. But now you look at Kampala, where every elective opposition, all the opposition has come out completely.
All opposition political
parties have come, including
against NRM. And against themselves,
yes,
actually, because it's against themselves.
Yes, and it means therefore that even in Kampala, where we thought it is an opposition stronghold, they may end up losing some slots because of that seeming disorganization, and even. So that in Mityana, I think that was the best way the opposition can realistically compete with NRM, because definitely in Mityana, where you have a whole cabinet minister and a minister of ICT and national guidance, definitely if you don't play your cards well, then that means you totally lose out on the whole process. Then the message of peace is spot on, but before I went to this, you had talked about the swing and the hot spots in this elections. Well, I can say that we don't have swing regions or swing districts here, but we would want to know how, for example, Iganga is going to vote because of Kalembe. We would want to know how Ntungamo votes because of Mugisha Muntu. We would want to know how Hoima votes because of Kabuleta. Actually, Sigwa was in Kubi. I wanted him also to tell us what's the feel, because that's where Amiret comes from. Amiret comes from. So we want to know how Gulu is going to vote because of Mao. Rukunjiri, how Rukunjiri is going to vote because of Henry Tumukunde. So that is actually something we would want to know. How the voting is going to be in that area.
Okay. Well, let's go to Yusuf Obo in Iganga. Can you hear me, Yusuf?
I hear you, Jagenda.
Well, thank you so much. How is Iganga? What's the situation like? And could you just paint us a picture? Because it's almost 5:30, and tomorrow at 7 o'clock, voting shall have kicked on. And more so that you are in Iganga, where Nancy Kalembe will be and where Nancy Kalembe will be voting. Tell us what is happening there.
Yeah, we expect 5,234 registered voters to cast their votes tomorrow in Iganga to 323 polling stations. Yeah, we expect Nancy Kalembe to vote in Naibiri village in Iganga, Chibolo North. Yeah.
That's in Chigulu North. So, by all means, Nancy is actually in Iganga right now.
Yeah.
Did you get an opportunity to speak to her today on phone or anyhow, or she had a press conference? Did you find her or not?
I'm just pressing where she is right now.
Okay. How about the returning officer in Iganga? Who is he and who is she, and have you spoken to him or her?
She's at Ahomase.
Abahomase. Have you spoken to her? Do you have assurances that the materials are ready for 7 o'clock tomorrow?
I have not yet talked to the returning officer. I have talked with security, Afande Katungosi. Anatoli Katungosi, who has assured us that security is ready to have the session tomorrow.
Okay, what about the people themselves? Are they excited? Are they prepared? Are they ready? Or they are fearing what is going to happen tomorrow?
As of now, people are excited. They haven't seen any deployment, like security has not yet deployed. Like they are expecting to deploy this evening.
Okay, but the people are ready to go and vote. Have you spoken to some in a way, Lugambo wise?
The people are ready, and as we speak, those who will be voting from the villages, they have already vacated.
Okay.
They have already vacated. They have left town to their villages.
Okay. Do you personally vote in Iganga?
I do vote in Iganga.
Where do you vote from? In?
Ruelera, Iganga.
In Ruelera.
Yeah.
What time do you hope to cast your vote?
I hope to cast my vote very early in the morning. I will be the first person to cast my vote.
Okay. Do you know how many positions are in there, apart from president, apart from woman member of parliament? Do you know all the other constituencies in Iganga? And could you just have a rough idea of the people contesting for these positions?
I have them.
Okay. What are these? Just give us those statistics as we conclude the conversation.
In Chikuru North, we have 14 contestants on a seat of MP. Then Chikuru South, we have 14 also. Then we have 6 women members of parliament protesting.
So these are 30 people, 34 people, I could say.
Yes.
34
Yes.
people.
But there is a municipality.
Okay. Then the municipality?
Municipality, we have 8 contestants.
Okay. Wow, that's very important. So we talk about over 40 people who are contesting for just these 5 slots, I could say? 3?
There are 4.
There are 4. 4 plus the woman. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, Ndugu Obo.
Thank you, Daginda.
We'll catch up with you again tomorrow. We just wish you all the best, and if anything happens, then we come to you. Thank you so much, Obo.
Thank you, Daginda.
Very good. Keep peace and ensure that people keep peace wherever they are. Gentlemen, we need to pave way for the Kiswahili Bulletin. I just want to get your remarks, your final remarks, in just 1 minute, and then we'll be out of here. I'll start with you, Ndugu Mututa.
Yeah, the time has come. Ugandans have to decide, and I would wish that someone doesn't say, you know, I wish I voted. It's now the time to vote. Go and vote for the person you want. Go for the so that you make sure the person you don't want loses, but you have to do your vote. And the earlier you vote, the better, because now, because of the distance we are going to keep, it's going to take longer than has been the case. That people are going to be distanced.
Okay.
They are going to take more time.
Okay.
So the earlier they get to the polling station,
the better for them.
The better for them
Sure.
to leave.
A call finally in 1 minute.
Well, I can say that this is the moment of truth. Yes, it's a moment of truth for everyone, the candidates and the voters. And it is a moment of truth in a sense that it is our duty as citizens to determine our destiny for the next 5 years.
Okay.
Yes, in other words, what you vote for tomorrow is what you're going to get in the next 5 years.
It's important and it's okay to actually express your emotions for as long as you don't injure or hurt anybody. But yet again, we need to know that facts also speak, numbers speak, facts speak, and we need to know these things truthfully to actually be able to go out and vote tomorrow. Now, we just want to let you know that the UBC TV UGI polls 2021 and the election hub at UBC has kicked off today, and we'll do the same tomorrow, the other day, and the other day. We'll be with you all the way. We just implore that you like it and follow it just right here to be on to just have this right information that comes to you all the way. Just thanking you for now, and we will pave way for our Kiswahili bulletin, and of course the subsequent bulletin that are also going to give us updates and much more of what is happening. 6 o'clock tomorrow, Good Morning Uganda. We'll start off with what is going to happen across the country. Thank you so much. My name is Jagenda Semakula Ziko Soka. Wishing you all the best a fortnight as you prepare to go out and vote. It's a civic duty that you cannot throw or cast away. It is important that you get there. It sounds very obscene if you actually say you do not want to vote. Now finally, if you don't go to vote for the person that you want, then you've indirectly or by default voted for the person whom you actually do not want. So it's important. Just go because your vote counts. Stay blessed. For God and my country, good evening. Thank you.